This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
All right, there he is, the man, the myth, the legend.
Expect excellence?
Yeah.
Expect excellence? Do you even know who you're dealing with, Big O?
You are excellence. You are excellence. That's
Wow.
what it is.
A lot to live up to there.
Of course, but you always live up to it. You've lived up to it forever, my brother, and I always appreciate
it. It feels like forever when you're covering the Hurricanes for the last 20 years. That's true.
Yeah. And do you like what's going on? Do you like the direction they're going in? What do you think about Mario? Talk to me about that overall. What's been your sense here for several months now?
I've always been a very outspoken Mario fan. I've covered the team so long that I covered the team when Mario was coaching positions at Miami. Right. You were covering the team too back then.
Yeah.
And the reason I love Mario is he has a passion about him that's infectious. And you don't find that. We've covered so many coaches here at Miami, and some of them you're not quite sure. You know, a guy comes, I'm not going to name names, but a guy comes in from some other program and he thinks he knows the Miami culture. He thinks he knows the Miami recruiting scene. He thinks he knows what Miami players need to succeed. And time again, we found that the majority of these guys who come in just don't. Mario gets it. Mario understands. And Mario knows that this is a program that needs to really, he won't say it, but it needs to be built from the ground up. This is still not 100% his roster. In fact, it's mainly Manny Diaz's roster. And people expect magic from 50 practices since he took over in late December. And, that's not really how modern college football works. Yeah, there are examples where a coach will come in or a coach can bring in 1 million transfer portal kids and have immediate success. Well, guess what? Mario brought in 12 transfers, and 2 of them were first-teamers in the first game. It's going to take a little time. Now, that's not to say Miami can't beat Texas A&M, because Texas A&M has its own problems.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that Miami can't win 10 games this year, because the Coastal was awful. And there's really only one other good team, quote-unquote good team, Clemson, that they'll face all year. And Texas A&M may not even be that good. We'll find out this weekend if App State was a fluke or not. But I've been talking too long, Big O. It's your show. I think I answered your question.
No, you did. And I'm glad that you phrased it that way, because we have so many unrealistic fans that think they're going to, challenge for the ACC and win it and possibly go to a playoffs. And they think they're going to be hanging with Alabama and Ohio State already. And it's incredibly unfair to Mario, because this roster is not even close. And hopefully last week, they saw how bad that secondary is. My God, Matt. And by the way, you can get Matt's work at CaneSport, by the way, because I did not mention that. Does an excellent job there at CaneSport. So make sure you follow Matt on Twitter at CaneSport and check him out there. But Matt, he's got a ton of work, and I know it's tough. It's tough to tell a Dolphins fan and a Canes fan to be patient, because the last 20 years have been so brutal that to tell them to be patient, it's tough. But unfortunately, that's the case. And you've got to give this man some time to get to the point where he can actually really challenge and take over Clemson, and then move on to try to challenge Alabama and Georgia and those kind of teams for a damn national title.
Right. Well, fans are fans, and they're called fans for a reason. Every preseason, Duke thinks they're going to win every game too. Duke's, you can pick any team. They're going to point to reasons why there can be hope for why the future is bright. I think it's real hope at Miami. I'm telling Miami fans, listen, within 2 to 4 years, this will be a playoff caliber roster. It's not right now, in my opinion. Fans can disagree because that's what fans do. That's just my personal opinion. I'm not going to lie about it. And to me, and look, I may be jaded, okay? I've covered the team since 2001. And I thought everything was going to be great in 2001. This is the greatest job ever, right? You come out of college, you start covering a national championship team. You're in the Rose Bowl, where I was. And, it didn't quite work out that way. And, I equate it to some extent almost, people say I'm negative, like you just said. People are too positive. I guess the flip side of that is negative. I'm not really negative. What it is, it's almost like Stockholm Syndrome, right? Where I've been kept prisoner by this team for the last 20 years, where you keep expecting that you'll escape, that you're going to be a champion again, and it never happens. You're still stuck in that corner, man, and you just can't get out of it. New coach comes in, doesn't work out. 5-star quarterback Kyle Wright comes in, doesn't work out. Teams playing an easy schedule, doesn't work out. And you get conditioned as a reporter to some extent to where I tell people I will see it, I will believe it when I see it. Not I will see it and then I'll believe it. I will believe it when I see it. And I haven't seen it yet. Even these first 2 games against really easy opponents, you see that you can look, even a diehard Miami fan can see there are some issues on the roster, right? Whether it's just throwing the ball up for grabs against Miami's defensive backs and DJ Ivey, getting beat, Malik Curtis getting beat. You could go down the line. There are some issues
Al
there.
Blades Jr. has no depth perception, apparently.
Al had a problem last game. I think Al was worried about getting a penalty, and that's the other thing. There's this fine line where Miami players have been told for years, don't get a personal foul, don't create a penalty. Sometimes playing hard, you're just going to get a penalty. And Al just stood there and watched the play because he realized if he had lowered his head and went into that receiver, he might have gotten a 15-yard penalty. But at the same time, you got to make a play on the ball. That's your job. Don't hit the guy. The ball's in front of you. Make a play on the ball. And I'm sure they've discussed with him. These Miami coaches are fantastic. I'm telling you, Big O, this is the best coaching staff that I've seen at Miami dating back to, Don Solinger, Art Kehoe, and those guys. I mean, this is that good of a staff. And those guys were coaching alongside guys that became head coaches in the NFL, et cetera, and head coaches in college. So that's why there should be a lot of reason for optimism. That's why you can say a reporter like me is negative this year because I say that the roster's not a playoff roster. And if you disagree with me, it's fine. But the future is bright regardless. So if you're a Miami fan, hang your hat on that. No matter what happens this weekend, hang your hat on that.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I have no problems. I know it's going to take Mario a couple of years, and we're going to have to kind of stick through it and all that stuff. And listen, it's a tall task for Mario, man, because Mario has to be the best coach he's ever been here, way better than he was in Oregon. Because I've said this many, many times, and it gets to some fans. What Mario did at Oregon is not good enough here at Miami. Okay, they already booed him 6 quarters into his career already as it is. He can't go losing to North Carolina or Pitt twice in a year, which is the equivalent to losing to Utah in that conference. So he's going to have to be the best coach he's ever been, better than he was at FIU, better than he was at Oregon, because here they're spoiled and they want a national title. So if you want him to get there, it ain't going to happen with this talent. He's got to go continue getting some of those 4 and 5-star kids and bring more of those guys here so he can really give himself a chance to be the best he's ever been, because that's the twisted part. He's got to be better than he ever was at Oregon. You agree with that, right?
Well, what you have to remember is when he came in at FIU, when he came in at Oregon, those programs were losing. Oregon had a losing record when he came in. And not that Miami wasn't a losing program or a 500 program. I mean, I certainly would couch it that way. They were certainly pretty close to 500 every year for the most part. Yeah. But there's a much better base that he's building off of. And I'm not talking about just recruiting. Well, I say the roster's not playoff level. It's a much better roster than what he inherited at Oregon. He built that Oregon roster through recruiting over the years and turned it into one of the top programs in that conference. And that's what he's starting to do here. He recognized, and listen, all you have to do don't take my word for the roster being inadequate. Take his word by grabbing 12 transfer portal prospects as soon as he saw what he had on the field. Right. That's a head coach telling you this roster is not good enough. And generally, the transfer portal is guys who were either going to be backups, were not being used in the way they wanted to be used. They're unhappy for some reason wherever they came from, unless they just wanted to come home for whatever reason. So the transfer portal is a way for quick fixes. It's not a way to build a championship team, in my opinion. And I think most people would agree with that. So when you put all the pieces together, though, he doesn't need to be the coach he was when he took over at Oregon. He doesn't need to be the coach he was when he took over at FIU. He's at a much different level. He has a much different understanding, and he's a much better support staff of coaches under him and support in general with an athletic director from Clemson, providing everything that he and his team needs. So really, he's more free to not focus on the little details and to focus on the big picture, which is what you want the head coach to be able to do. So I really do think that this is finally, I'm going to escape my cell and I'm going to be watching a championship team or at least a team in the playoffs. I'm not talking about double-digit team playoffs. I'm talking Final Four playoffs in the next 4 years. I honestly do believe that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. I think he has a chance to definitely build it and get to that point. I'm really excited for him and for Canes fans because obviously they have suffered for a long, long time. Matt Shodell from CaneSport joining us. All right, Matt. I looked at this like a really, really tough test, and then I watched the App State game, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe Miami has a chance. But then, I also look at what Miami did this past week, and that secondary, and if it's something that secondary has been notorious for the last couple of years, is they make any and every quarterback look absolutely way better than what they really are. And as bad as maybe the quarterback situation is at Texas A&M right now, and Jimbo's trying to figure it out, I almost feel like the panacea for any quarterback or any quarterback situation is, hey, face the Canes secondary. That'll fix all your ills. So please make me feel better about this. Can I?
Yes and no. Texas A&M does have a really good true freshman receiver. They do have another really good returning receiver. And Miami, I would say, has probably three of the top, a trio of safeties that are as good as any outside of Clemson in the ACC. And they have a first or second round guy at cornerback in Tyreek. So on paper, this is a really good secondary. I thought coming into the season, the secondary would be the strength of Miami's defense. So it's almost inexplicable, especially with Jamil Adai coaching them, who's really good from Georgia. It's a little inexplicable why they keep saying there's technique breakdowns and just confusion. And, it comes back to, I think to some extent, they were really relying on DJ Ivey, who's a fantastic practice player. But in games over the past 2 years now, including this year, he just seems to not, just get beat. You saw him last game. A perfect example of I don't understand what he's doing is ball comes his way, one-on-one coverage. He has great coverage. I mean, perfect blanket coverage. He's looking at the ball, and it looks like he's going to make a play on the ball. And then all of a sudden, he just turns his head and starts looking at the receiver. The receiver catches it, and then he tackles him, which I don't understand. That's not doing what you're coached to do, obviously. So it's just these little brain hiccups that if they can get it sorted out and sort of get these guys' heads on straight, they have all the talent in the secondary you need. It's just making it all sort of come together. And look, they certainly have a good chance to beat Texas A&M. They also have a good chance to lose to Texas A&M. It's almost like, it depends who you ask. It's like asking someone, are you a Democrat or Republican? They give you their answer, and they are pretty sure that's what they are. And people are pretty sure on one end that their Texas A&M is going to win. On the other end, that Miami's going to win. And then you got your people who, it's like asking who the libertarian candidates are going to be in the next election. And they're like, I don't know. Like that, it's those three dichotomies. There's no majority that I think saying Miami's going to win. There's no majority saying Texas A&M's going to win. There's no majority in the middle. It's like 33%, 33%, 33% from everyone I talk to, which is super weird because usually you get this swaying where people all get convinced that this team's going to win because of X, Y, and Z. And this game, people have no freaking clue. They're like, Texas A&M lost to App State. Miami did not look good on offense.
No.
Last game. They had to run the ball to win it in the second half, which is very unusual for Miami.
And their secondary didn't look good on defense.
That guy had some problems. So you get all these, people just don't know what to think. Even Miami fans. I never see Miami fans ever picking Miami to lose. They're going on our YouTube channel. They're going on our message boards, picking Texas A&M to win. But only some of them. Most of them still say Miami wins. But then, the majority of the country, they don't know what to think. This is why it's almost like a season opener where you just don't know what's going to happen. I mean, it's going to be this is as exciting a game as a third game that I can remember, because usually the first game's exciting because you want to see how they're going to use the personnel. They're always hiding stuff in fall practice from us, who the depth chart's going to be, blah, blah, blah. How do guys look? So to me, this is almost like a season opener. Both teams have struggled to some extent. Both teams have not shown a lot, even against App State. I don't think Texas A&M had 38 reps on offense. You don't glean a lot from that, especially when the first half was supposed to be vanilla. So we're going to learn a lot about Miami and a lot about Texas A&M. And perhaps both teams are terrible, and perhaps both teams are great, and perhaps one team's great and one team's terrible. And we're going to start getting some answers at 9 p.m. on Saturday.
Yeah, definitely. I'm with you there. Matt Shodell from CaneSport joining us. And that's why I ask you, because I'm so concerned. To Corey Couch showed me, also lack of ball skills. Al Blades, you said he didn't make a play, but dude, you got to make a play on the ball. And he stood there waiting for the ball. And it's like, dude, don't you understand that ball is going to fall short from you? Like, that kind of stuff. And then obviously you talk about the ultimate practice player. He reminds me of Sam Eguavoen for the Dolphins. Great preseason linebacker, but really in the regular season, you probably don't want him playing linebacker overall. So that's one of my concerns. And then the other concern is, and not only do I have it as a concern, but I also have it as I think a growing concern down the line, because I'm afraid somebody else is going to take the blame and he doesn't deserve it. And I see it sometimes happen in other circles. Wide receiver. Now the Xavier Restrepo injury, we were wondering who the hell is going to be the number 2 guy. Well, now if Xavier's not there, then who's going to be, complementing or taking over? And then the flip side of that, as the season goes on, here's what I'm terrified about. I think Tyler Van Dyke is a fantastic player, but I also think he doesn't have enough help. I don't think he has enough playmakers. But America seems to be kind of stupid when it comes to football at times. And they're going to start blaming him down the line and saying, well, he's got to do more and he's got to get these guys motivated. He's got to make. And really, in the end, I think Tyler's doing what he can with what he has. And I'd like to know who the hell is going to step up and help their quarterback make plays, because we have this perception in this country, college or the pros, that the quarterback seems to be the guy that makes everything happen for you. And that's just a lie. There's a lot of reasons why they win. And yes, the quarterback's one of them. But, dude, it's usually because there's a lot of people making plays for the quarterback. Does Tyler Van Dyke have enough playmakers around him?
Well, I'll start with it's concerning, and I had never heard Tyler utter this before, but when he was off target, just not really doing things right last game, he told us this week that he had some mechanical problems with his footwork, which is sort of surprising for a guy like him who's just so attention to detail in everything always. So that's concerning. But as far as the playmakers, I'm not that concerned. But this is on Josh Gaddis. If you want to blame somebody, it shouldn't be Tyler Van Dyke. If it goes south, it'll be Josh.
I'm not blaming him at all.
I'm saying if America, if people want to blame someone if this offense doesn't perform up to expectations, it would be on Josh Gaddis. Josh Gaddis has all the pressure because he wants to be a head coach. He wants this offense to succeed. Obviously, they all do. But the other thing, there is, Xavier Restrepo, okay, he's been their leading receiver through 2 games, but there's other guys here. Jalen Knighton's coming back. He's an outstanding receiving running back who can actually line up in the slot, can even line up outside and has lined up outside and scored touchdowns catching long passes outside in the past. Henry Parrish, great receiving running back. Will Mallory and Elijah Arroyo are 2 really, really good pass-catching tight ends who just have not been utilized yet, but they will be, because if you watch Josh Gaddis at Michigan, that's what he does. That's almost his specialty. And again, Miami's been so vanilla these first 2 weeks. They really didn't want to show a lot. I get it. You need a downfield passing game. Is that a concern?
Yeah.
It is with these Miami receivers, for sure. When your leading receiver has been the slot receiver and your next leading receiver is the backup slot receiver, it's telling you you're not throwing the ball down the field. Now, is that by design by Josh Gaddis, or is that Josh Gaddis saying we're not going to show any of our, real downfield, intricacies in our route trees? I don't know. We'll find out this weekend. But, you heard early in fall camp, the receivers were dropping passes. The receivers were blanketed by the cornerbacks. They couldn't get open. The last 2 weeks of fall camp, they finally seemed to do better. But certainly I'm concerned about the wide receiver room. I think the tight ends and the running backs will help maybe ease things up a little bit in the passing game for Tyler in terms of checkdowns if he needs to, if those guys are not getting open downfield. But I think Brashard Smith in the slot's going to be fine. And then you got to find a guy, man. You got to find a Keyshawn Smith, Romello Brinson, whoever. I mean, they brought in Frank Ladson as a transfer from Clemson who hasn't panned out. They brought in another guy, Colby Young, who hasn't panned out yet. So, they tried bringing in 2 transfer receivers, but it just seemed, and they get Jacoby George back from suspension for this weekend's game. So I wish I could give you an answer that, yeah, everything's going to be fine at receiver, But there's just so many guys who haven't done it, haven't proven it. And the one guy
Yeah.
who had proven it is out, at least had proven it through a couple of games this year and had been done really well in spring and fall practices. So yeah, there are question marks. It's on Josh Gaddis, and I'm very curious also to see if Josh Gaddis goes into this shell where, okay, we think our defense has the advantage against Texas A&M's offense, which has struggled. So let's not make any mistakes on offense. Let's not force the ball into coverages to receivers who might drop it or have it bounce off their hands. Let's run the ball. Let's throw quick passes. Let's throw outlets to the running backs and tight ends and slot guys. I'm very curious because my suspicion is that's what Josh Gaddis is going to do, and I think it would be a mistake. I think to win at Texas A&M, you need to get that downfield passing going from the first snap and have it hit. So Texas A&M has to respect it, and then you can do anything you want off of that. But if you're doing this little close quarter stuff and just trying to dink and dunk and grind out your 10 yards and get to 3rd and 2 so you have a manageable situation, I don't know that you win a game like this. And I do know it's going to be close at the end of the game if you do it that way. Whereas, maybe Miami's the better team and they could blow them out if they have some success passing downfield with a guy who some people said before the season is a Heisman candidate and a first-round draft pick, and he still very well may be, even though he's, hasn't really been that great the first 2 games.
All right, so give me the prediction, Matt Shodell from CaneSport. What happens?
Well, I already gave my prediction on CaneSport. I'm going to tell you the exact same thing. I work with Gary Furman. Azubi Charles is our new guy. Both of them refused to give a prediction, Big O. They said, how can you predict a game like this? It's impossible because nobody knows. A prediction would be disingenuous.
They would not last 2 minutes on this show. There's no fence straddling on this show. You must make a commitment.
Well, then you're going to love this prediction. I'm not going to tell you anything different than what I said yesterday. I said one of these 2 teams will win by 3 points, and I stand by that. That's all you're getting from me, Big O.
Well, come on, man.
I will tell you this. When a Miami quote-unquote fan site reporter doesn't want to make a prediction, usually they're a little nervous that the the team you cover at home might be in for a loss, But listen, it's going to be a close game. Everybody can read between the lines when local Miami reporters are hesitant to make a prediction. Because if a local Miami reporter thinks they're going to win, of course you want to make fans happy. But you also don't want to be disingenuous and say something you don't think. So I legitimately can see Miami losing by 3 points or winning by 3 points. Maybe 51-49% Texas A&M favor, okay? That's all you're going to get from me. I don't know what else to tell you. That's just how I see it going into this game. I don't know what else to tell you because this is one of the hardest games I've ever seen in 20 plus years covering this team to predict because both teams have Miami hasn't really seen anybody decent skill-wise. And Texas A&M failed miserably against App State, but was supposed to be a top 5 or top 10 team in the country. So how do you predict it, Big O? I mean, what are you going to tell people?
Oh, Texas A&M is winning the game.
All right. Well, There you go.
Yeah, I the Restrepo thing. I'm concerned that there aren't enough playmakers for Van Dyke. I know he's kept it vanilla, but I still the offensive line still isn't up to snuff the way you really need it to be. I'm concerned that secondary they make every quarterback look good, and the worst thing is now Texas A&M is going to lose at home 2 weeks in a row. Wow, dude. Yeah, I have a hard time believing that, and right now I just don't know if the Canes are good enough to go in there and win that game. It's not like I think they're going to get blown out or anything because I don't think Texas A&M is that good. It's just I haven't seen enough from Miami to feel good that they can even eke out a win against these guys. So we'll see.
Listen, Miami likes it when you pick against them because then they get the us against the world thing going.
Oh, whatever.
And truthfully, listen, it's I tell people this, and I believe this too. I think it's in Mario Cristobal and the Miami Hurricanes' best interest for the future, for recruiting, for fans to take a quote-unquote realistic approach to this season. And if something goes south this season, if you lose an ACC game, even 2 ACC games, if you lose to Texas A&M, even if you don't have a great showing, it doesn't mean this program will not be great under these coaches. I agree. I agree. Hope, but if fans expect, Miami's going to kill App State, how can we lose to a team that lost to App State? There's no way that can happen. If you take that mentality, in this modern era of recruiting, and recruiting is how Mario has to build this. He knows that too. In this modern era of recruiting, all these fans go on Twitter. All these fans, the outside noise becomes so loud that it's almost unbearable. And what I'm hoping fans will do is just say, okay, it's a process. If you lose a game, if you don't play well, they have to understand it's his first year. Coaches don't get a pass anymore. You remember in the old days, a coach would say, here's my 4-year plan, here's my 5-year plan. And everybody, oh, that's great. In 4 or 5 years, we'll win. Well, now it's like if you don't beat a team that was ranked in the top 10 a week ago, you're garbage. And, I get it. Everyone wants immediate gratification in this modern era and our current society. And Miami may very well give it to you. I'm not saying they won't. But if you don't expect it, you'll be happy. And if you don't expect it and you don't get it, you'll be at least, it'll have met your expectations. But if you think they're going to be great all year and win every game and they don't, then you're upset and you go on Twitter and you get all this outside noise. And now recruits are like, maybe I shouldn't go to this program. It sounds like the fans are really upset. And why would I want to go somewhere like that? So I just hope everyone takes a measured approach and gives Mario some time. If they lose this game, which they may not, but if they lose this game, if they lose another game, God forbid, look, at the end of the day, we're all Miami people, Big O. We all want Miami to win, but you also have to have a reasonable expectation for what Mario inherited and what he's been able to do in not that long a period of time so far.
Yeah, and realistically, you have to look at it. Jimbo's been at it longer, rebuilding that program, so he should have better talent going into this game overall than Mario Cristobal. So that's why on the point side, it's a lot of points. Texas A&M is favored by 6. This could be a tight one, but yeah, I am concerned about this game for the Canes and for Mario and for Tyler. I don't know if Tyler has enough help around him, and that's one. Well, maybe he has, but it's too green yet and it hasn't matured yet or whatever. But it's going to be rough, man. It's going to be rough. All right, Matt. As always, my brother. Thank you for taking some time. I appreciate you. We'll catch up down the line. Let's hope for a good outcome this weekend.
Yeah, likewise, Big O. All right.
You got it, my brother. There you go. Matt Shodell. Follow him on Twitter at CaneSport. He does excellent work out there, man. Good stuff by Matt Shodell.